We're going to stand together and fight for our youth.
Families speaking out and calling for justice as teens continue to be caught up in Baltimore's violence. Fox 45 News shines a spotlight on the ongoing crisis. BGE is submitting a request for rate hikes in the wake of Mayor Scott's controversial conduit deal. How much more the utility wants you to pay. A former county official expected to appear in criminal court next month.
They are very serious and concerning charges.
How much money investigators say was stolen. Squeegee kit donations have been open for nearly a month. Fox 45 News looks into if residents are actually giving and why financial experts don't expect much.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Clarity tonight on the fallout from Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott's conduit deal with BGE.
Now that it has been approved, the utility is proposing rate hikes for all customers, not just city residents, in its multi-year plan just filed with state regulators.
And here's a closer look at how much you could pay if those hikes are approved. Your monthly bill would go up by an average of $10.36 each year. And that means you pay $124 annually more for your utilities. Now, you can see a full breakdown of these costs on our website, foxbaltimore.com. BGE filed this request with the Maryland Public Service Commission this afternoon, 2 days after the conduit deal was approved by Mayor Brandon Scott and his appointees on the Board of Estimates. Now, some city officials say the city's conduit deal was rushed.
There's 9% inflation right now. I don't think anybody disputes whether or not the rates are going to go up, but this would allow them to not go up as much.
So this administration has decided to unilaterally support this private institution that has a statewide operation on the backs of Baltimore City residents.
Again,
in a rushed fashion.
Today, Baltimore City Comptroller Bill Henry and Council President Nick Mosby spoke to members of the city's Senate delegation outlining their frustration with this deal. Those two, you'll remember, skipped the Board of Estimates meeting in protest Wednesday after calling for the conduit deal to be taken off the agenda completely. It follows your vote in November to approve a charter amendment blocking the sale of the conduit system, a 700-mile network of pipes carrying utility wires. Now, critics claim the mayor's deal goes against the spirit of that vote and gives too much authority over the underground utilities to BGE.
Mayor Scott supports the deal despite questions about the timetable. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost questioned him earlier this week about the criticism and why he's pushing so hard for the deal.
Do you have anything to gain personally from this contract?
Mackenzie, that's the most disrespectful questions you've ever asked me. No. I don't have anything personal to gain. I do what's right for Baltimore, not what's right for me.
Mayor Scott, if you lose re-election, would you work for BG&E?
Mackenzie, two things for sure. I'm not losing re-election, and I'm not working for BG&E. I'm never going to work for BGE. That's not what I do. I'm a public servant, and that's how I live my life.
Does that mean you are running for re-election? Is that a commitment?
No, I am.
Baltimore City Councilmember Zeke Cohen has been among the louder critics, saying the conduit deal is a brutal indictment of the mayoral system in Baltimore.
It looks terrible. The process has been rushed. People, communities feel shut out. Elected officials feel shut out. And it looks like this was a power play between the mayor and BGE.
Well, Cohen is proposing a complete overhaul of the Board of Estimates, replacing appointed and elected members with people from the community who he argues would be a better reflection of what's best for Baltimore.
It's not a situation where I want it to become a political tussle between the mayor and the council president or anybody else. This is an opportunity for Baltimoreans, those of us that live here, that are sending our kids to school here, that deal with the day-to-day issues, but that love our city, to have a voice in reshaping it.
Comptroller Bill Henry said he would have been open to the deal if the terms were, quote, good for Baltimore. But Henry says he doesn't believe that was the case. Comptroller Henry will join us on Fox 45 Morning News Sunday at 8:30. A 16-year-old is in police custody for the murder of another 16-year-old outside of Edmonton Westside High School, part of a youth crime crisis among both suspects and victims. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with one family's calls for justice in this case. Keith?
Well, Kai, it's been a tough week for those hit by gun violence, notably those families and those cases involving juveniles. And tonight, what we've learned about one case. Outside the Clarence Mitchell Jr. Courthouse in downtown Baltimore, family members wipe the grief away, and there is a touch on the shoulder for comfort. The father, stepmother, and aunt of murdered 16-year-old Deontay Dorsey shed tears while their lawyer talks about the gun violence that struck Dorsey and continues to grip other young people in the city.
As seriously as we take every child victim in this city, we also have to take seriously the crimes that are being committed by juveniles.
The family is outside the courthouse on the same day Dorsey's accused killer, a 16-year-old boy, appears for a bail hearing. At that hearing, a revelation. As reported by the Baltimore Banner, the 16-year-old suspect charged with murdering Dorsey was on juvenile probation for a prior gun charge when police say he opened fire last month on a crowd of students across from Edmondson Westside High School, killing Dorsey, wounding 4 other students. Baltimore District Judge Flynn Owens cited the teen suspect's juvenile record when denying him bail. Youth violence amid the debate over State Senator Jill Carter's controversial bill that would prevent juveniles from being tried as adults, even for crimes like murder. Carter says the Youth Equity Act is necessary because kids' brains aren't fully developed until at least 25 years old.
The very children under our current law that could be automatically charged as an adult, tried by a jury, are not even eligible to serve on a jury because they're under the age of 18. So right there, you're talking about a major hypocrisy and inconsistency in our system.
Still, back at the courthouse, Dorsey's family, hoping the 16-year-old suspect in their loved one's case remains in adult court.
Justice has to be done, not on street corners, but in courthouses.
Well, Becky Reynolds, the sister of Timothy Reynolds, stood in solidarity with the Dorsey family today. You may recall Timothy Reynolds was shot and killed after approaching a group of Squeegee workers with a baseball bat last summer. The suspect in that case, a 15-year-old boy. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Keith. There are serious concerns about Senator Carter's bill that Keith reported on. It would automatically begin cases involving juveniles in the youth justice system. Currently, teens can be charged as adults. Now, some victim rights advocates say if the bill is passed, it would be a slap in the face to victims.
Even on the most serious offenses, you're talking about taking an individual and putting them into a program for 6 to 9 months and then returning them to the street.
Juvenile records are sealed, meaning it may be impossible to know if someone has committed a violent crime in the past.
And with the reports that the 16-year-old charged in the Edmonton shooting was on probation, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates wants to strengthen misdemeanor gun sentences, backing a bill that would increase the possible sentences up to 5 years, no matter the age of the suspect, citing current rules that allow convicts out after serving just 25% of a sentence. Less than a year in some cases. That bill in Annapolis now has bipartisan support, but it's not clear when it will be up for a vote by state lawmakers. Now, if you want to contact your area lawmakers about crime in your communities, you can point your phone's camera right now at that QR code there on your screen. It will take you to our website, which lists official email and phone numbers of local state senators and delegates.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you believe stronger penalties will reduce crime? The poll just opened. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to participate. So far, 67% of those who voted say yes. A once trusted county official in Baltimore County is scheduled to make his first court appearance in criminal court next month. State prosecutors accuse Chris McCullum of embezzling more than $140,000 from 2 campaign accounts. And tonight, Jeff Abel has the fallout.
In Baltimore County, politicians who once relied on Chris McCullum were today distancing themselves from him.
I've worked with Mr. McCullum professionally. I have not had contact I can't even remember the last time we've talked.
McCollum worked for a decade as the director of Baltimore County's Agricultural Center, but it was his work as campaign treasurer for former Councilwoman Kathy Bevins and for the Victory Slate, a campaign for county Democratic candidates, that led to the state prosecutor slapping McCollum with 21 charges of embezzlement, theft, and perjury. In a criminal complaint filed on Thursday, prosecutors accused McCollum of embezzling more than $140,000. Some of the campaign funds used to pay off McCollum's personal credit card debt. Some of it used to pay for travel to Iceland, Puerto Rico, and Florida.
They are very serious and concerning charges, and it's our hope that as that process plays out, that justice is served.
McCollum stepped down from his county job 2 years ago after an investigation by the Inspector General revealed that McCollum had made $30,000 in unauthorized purchases. But according to the Baltimore Brew, McCollum continued to receive his county paycheck 10 months after resigning from his job, thanks to an arrangement by the county executive's office.
Good morning, everyone.
Today, County Executive Johnny Oslewski denied any involvement.
Those are HR conversations, and so I wasn't involved in the discussions around HR decisions and personnel. That's something I can certainly refer to our human resources.
For now, McCollum is off the county payroll and awaiting his first appearance in criminal court next month. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
It is really starting to get cold outside. Around 10 a.m. this morning, temperatures were in the 60s, so we're about 30 degrees cooler right now. We've got the 30s in a couple spots in the 40s, even the teens in the 20s in parts of the state compared to just 24 hours ago. This is a major cool down, and of course, it's all behind that cold front that brought us rain. We're going to stay nice and dry behind the cold front with clearing skies. However, the cold front will leave us with very low temperatures. We drop to the 20s overnight. Then by the afternoon, we're looking at more winter-like temperatures, staying in the 40s and close to average. But we're back to a warming trend next week. I'll let you know how high temperatures get and when to expect the next weather maker coming up in my full forecast. Back to you.
Next on Fox 45 News at 10, seeking transparency on several issues from city contracts to failing city schools. The questions we continue to ask and how your elected leaders are choosing to respond. And the plastic bag ban signed into law in Baltimore County. How long you have to get a reusable one before facing a fee every time you shop. And 10:30, a Baltimore mother pulling her child from a city school after two fellow students were shot this school year. Her heartbreaking situation and how she wants her child to receive an education going forward.
Questions are swirling right now about transparency and accountability surrounding city schools, government, contracts, and possible corruption.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost walks us through some of the questions we've been asking this week from the accountability desk.
It's been a busy week demanding answers for several different topics. First, let's start with the controversy inside City Hall. The contract between the City of Baltimore, BG&E, all about the conduit. Mayor Scott pushing the contract through. After City Comptroller Bill Henry and Nick Mosby, the council president, boycotted the BOE meeting where that contract between BG&E and the city was approved in the first place. Now, there's still some questions about whether that vote itself was legal since those two weren't there and they didn't have representatives on the Board of Estimates itself. In the meantime, we've sent questions. When did contract negotiations begin? What do the citizens of Baltimore stand to gain from this deal? The city says the contract was being negotiated over the holidays and was just recently finalized. We're still digging into the details to see if we can learn anything else about this situation. According to our informal survey, people just aren't believing that the mayor is acting in what's best for the city. 82% of the people who have taken this poll say they believe the mayor is actually acting in the interest of himself rather than the people of Baltimore. Meanwhile, Baltimore City schools also facing questions. Project Baltimore highlighting the fact that 23 schools had 0 students who were able to do math at grade level. Mayor Brandon Scott and his office ignored our question for days about these problems and these students who are failing in so many Baltimore City public schools. But then we found him in person. At an unrelated event, we caught up with the mayor and questioned him about these problems that we're seeing inside city schools. Here's what he said.
That's no surprise to anybody. This is what we should be talking about here. We knew that this would happen.
If you say this was predictable, then why wasn't anything done to ensure these students didn't test this poorly?
I think I'll just say, Mackenzie, that in my response, I already gave you a response, right? And again, you comparing to one, I said the state, jurisdictions across the state and how city schools have made progress. And they did a lot of work, right?
But not being proficient in math isn't the only problem we've been pressing leaders about when it comes to schools. Project Baltimore sent questions to Governor Wes Moore in his office asking about school choice, especially given some of the problems and failures that we're learning about with some city schools. Right now, Governor Moore is proposing to cut $2 million from the Boost program. That offers scholarship opportunities for low-income families to send their kids to non-public schools. And we know right now that could be beneficial since some of the schools, at least in the city, are struggling with proficiency. That $2 million is about 20% of the entire Boost program's budget. So given those concerns, Project Baltimore sending some questions to the governor. Why are you proposing cutting $2 million from the Boost program? Is this the first step in phasing out the Boost program? What options will low-income families have to seek out better opportunities for education? So far, we haven't gotten a response on those questions. But back to our informal polling, 95% of the people who have responded say they believe parents should have school choice if their child's school is failing. These are just some of the issues that we're having in the city, but there's also questions being raised in the county. Former county employee Chris McCollum, he was just indicted by the state prosecutor, accused of embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars from various campaigns. Given the possible connection between McCollum and Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski, we sent Johnny O a couple questions. Were you aware of these allegations outlined in the indictment before it became public? McCollum resigned from his position last year. Why was he not terminated given these findings? Not really answering these questions, but we did get a statement from Johnny Olszewski. Here's what it said in part. These charges are serious, and we support every effort to ensure justice is served. We'll continue to hold all elected leaders accountable regardless of the topic. At the accountability desk, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
That boil water advisory we told you about in parts of Baltimore County, well, it's over. The County Department of Public Works says that they've repaired a 20-inch water main break. Testing revealed no harmful bacteria in the impacted area. Residents are still encouraged to run their cold water for 15 minutes before drinking it. For a full list of steps following the advisory, go to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, Bring Your Own Bag is officially coming to Baltimore County, banning single-use plastic bags. County Executive Johnny Olszewski signed off on the measure, which will be enforced starting next year.
Well, I was proud to support the legislation when the council put it in. Thrilled to see it passed. Grateful again to our partners. Let's sign this thing into law.
Well, in addition to banning single-use plastic, the bill also imposes a 5-cent fee for paper bags. This reflects similar policies already in effect in Baltimore City. The CIAA Tournament Week kicks off tomorrow with a youth sports and cheer clinic. Registration is free at the tournament website. Games tip off Tuesday night at the newly renovated CFG Bank Arena.
Coming up, Tiger Woods is back in a competitive tournament for the first time in nearly a year. Why some on-course hijinks are prompting an apology.
Plus, creativity and history on display at a Baltimore museum. A look at the unique sculptures of the people who helped shape Black progress in America.
We're looking at a nice and dry weekend, and it looks great for spending some time outside. But tomorrow, it's actually going to feel like February as temperatures only reach the upper 40s, but we'll have plenty of sunshine. Then on Sunday, it's back to the well above average temperatures we've been used to. Upper 50s followed by the low 60s on Monday, and next week, we could be talking the 70s. I'll let you know when to expect the big warm up coming up in my full forecast.
Taking a look now at the Fox box, the top left, Dominion Energy is offering a scholarship explicitly for, quote, historically underserved students, describing that as Black and African American or Hispanic and Latino, but others were not listed. Dominion told Sinclair Broadcast Group it's committed to a, quote, diverse and inclusive workforce.
On the top right, a father in Anchorage, Alaska, protesting a library book he calls sexually explicit, says he was cut off by the school board during public comment. The board says it was following meeting rules and that the book causing outrage was not available to students.
Well, the bottom left, Tiger Woods apologizing today for a prank that he pulled on Justin Thomas at the Genesis Invitational. Photos showed Woods handing Thomas a tampon after Woods hit a shot further than Thomas. The two men were seen laughing on the course about it.
And on the bottom right, 6 people were gunned down across a small town in Mississippi. Police say the victims included the shooter, his ex-wife and stepfather. Richard Crum was taken into custody. You can be the first to know about breaking news by signing up for News on the Go. Go to foxbaltimore.com and click on Mobile Alert Sign Up under the Station tab. You can also download the Fox 45 app for your smartphone. Search for WBFF in your app store.
5 former Memphis police officers are pleading not guilty to second-degree murder and other charges in the violent arrest and death of Tyree Nichols. 29-year-old Nichols was repeatedly kicked and punched by the officers following a traffic stop in early January. Nichols was hospitalized and died 3 days later. His mother and stepfather attended the arraignment with their attorney, Ben Crum.
I had to be here today to make sure that justice gets done for our son.
They didn't even have the courage to look at me in my face after what they did to my son. So they're going to see me at every court date, everyone.
Exactly.
And until we get justice for my son.
All 5 officers are out on bail and due in court again on May 1st.
Baltimore Squeegee Collaborative striking out on donations, why one expert feels people aren't willing to empty their pockets.
A Baltimore City mother pulls her child out of school after 2 students have been shot. Why she says alternative options that she's been presented with are not good enough.
New hearings on COVID on the way to Capitol Hill. Will they change the way the government handles any future pandemic problems? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look coming up.
We're following 2 big stories at 10:30 tonight. The Squeegee Collaborative's push for donations hasn't raised much money. Why one expert thinks people aren't donating.
Plus, a 15-year-old girl fighting for her life after a Baltimore shooting. Just the latest in a string of violence against young people. Mayor Brandon Scott voicing his frustration.
And I want everyone to get mad and get angry. There isn't one thing that's going to stop things like this from happening.
A former Baltimore police officer offering insight into the youth crime crisis tonight.
Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has the concerning data and perspective on juvenile violence.
When looking at homicides and non-fatal shootings, statistics show more than 300 juveniles have fallen victim to either of those two crimes here in Baltimore over the past 4 years, and many worry that trend will continue throughout 2023.
There's a shooting. There's a female was shot in the head.
The 15-year-old Merville High School freshman shot outside of an elementary middle school is one of the latest crimes committed against juveniles here in Baltimore.
Another incident where we have a young male or female who's a victim of gun violence in our city, and we just got to stop it.
She is a freshman at Merville. This is the third time that we have seen trauma impact this school this academic year.
Statistics from the Baltimore Police Department troubling. Since 2019, at least 229 juveniles have been shot in Baltimore. In addition, at least 82 juveniles have been murdered.
The numbers are staggering.
Former Baltimore Police Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson weighing in on the data. Here, a year-to-year breakdown of the non-fatal shootings and homicides. The statistics showing 2022 had the highest number of juveniles injured in non-fatal shootings and the second highest number of homicides. Johnson pointing out the number of juveniles shot so far this year is already nearly double the number shot during this same time frame in 2022, which, according to the data, was one of the more violent years for young people.
There are probably several reasons, but I think the number one reason is lack of consequences.
As for this most recent case involving the Merville High School teen, no arrests have been made, the department not yet providing any suspect description. In Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
The violence is driving one Baltimore mother to pull her child out of his Baltimore City public school. Kiwana Perry's son is a student at Merville High School, but she's worried after two students have been shot this year. One 17-year-old on the football team killed. Perry says the school isn't taking the proper precautions to keep children safe.
It is horrible to think that your children cannot attend school and feel safe. Now, these recent situations are starting to occur. I just need peace in knowing that my child is safe going to school, but they don't have a safety plan. So what is a parent to do?
Well, that mother says the other school options she was given, in her opinion, are also not safe. Her hope is to move her son to virtual learning or possibly even homeschool him.
A man is arrested following the death of 37-year-old Audra Pineda. Her body was found behind Lansdowne Middle School last month on a school day. Kids were kept indoors during the investigation. 57-year-old Clarence Henson now faces first and second-degree murder charges. He'll appear in court March 17th in Towson.
19-year-old Darian Gamble is in police custody tonight, charged in a double shooting in Northeast Baltimore on February 4th. Police say Gamble shot a 60-year-old woman and 17-year-old man along Medford Road. He's charged with attempted first-degree murder and remains at central booking.
The Baltimore Squeegee Collaborative has been in place for a month. Now the mayor's office is asking for donations to pay Squeegee kids as part of that plan. Fox 45's Olivia Dance looks into the campaign and if residents are actually donating.
Throughout downtown Baltimore, the fundraising campaign for Squeegee Kids can be seen rotating through on these electric signs. It's not up right now, but I have seen it since standing here. But this specific sign off of Fleet Street is just blocks away from where Squeegee Kids are now banned. Driving through Baltimore, chances are you will likely come across Squeegee Kids.
I don't feel like you can come into Baltimore and not experience the Squeegee Kids.
For months, Squeegee Kids have been harassing drivers.
I feel like the idea of the Squeegee kids or boys or whatever is out there is like more of a negative image.
I know it's off-putting to a lot of people, especially if you're visiting and you're not from here.
But under Mayor Brandon Scott's new Squeegee Collaborative plan, Squeegee Kids are banned from 6 intersections across the city. On January 10th, that enforcement began, and Baltimore police confirmed that since then, 19 warnings have been given for pedestrians walking and standing in roadways.
I don't see any problem with giving warnings. The issue is with so few warnings given, it really makes you wonder if there's any enforcement going on at all.
Former Baltimore Police Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson worries that enforcement isn't really happening, and our cameras catching some Squeegee Kids still coming back night after night.
And now, as part of the mayor's plan, a city-backed campaign is asking residents to donate money to help fund Squeegee Kids' goals.
These are really difficult economic times. Inflation is still high. You know, people are really pinched financially, and it's highly doubtful that any extra money they do have, they're going to send to Squeegee Kids, which traditionally have been a problem in the city of Baltimore.
The campaign launched last month, advertised on electric signs downtown, is pushing donors to a website. But as of Friday, only $40 has been donated, nowhere near the campaign's goal. Taxpayer watchdog David Williams thinks the lack of donations speaks volumes.
Baltimore City folks seem to be voicing their opinion through this campaign is that they're not willing to pay to solve this, that this is the city's responsibility and the city needs to figure this out.
Some city residents we spoke to agree.
I feel like that's the part of it why some people don't want to help. They feel as though the misconduct is going to do nothing but support their bad habits.
Some people in Baltimore probably had like negative experiences with the Squeegee Kids, so sometimes people have one bad experience and that kind of taints whether or not they want to give to something like that.
Some residents we spoke to also think people are unaware of the campaign and just haven't seen these signs, which could be another reason there's so few donations. But David Williams thinks that even if people are aware, they would be unlikely to donate because this really should be the city's responsibility. For now, reporting in Baltimore, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul is questioning the dean of Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Sarah Zanton, saying the university's vaccine mandate should no longer be enforced. As it stands, all students and staff are required to have 2 shots and a booster.
In Britain, France, Germany, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, they don't have university mandates on this. Some countries don't recommend it for children at all. There really is a debate and discussion. You can have an opposite debate, but if you believe in choice, when something has a debate and there's arguments on both sides, you'd give people the choice.
Well, Zanton told Paul she broadly believes in people making their own medical decisions, but she wanted to focus on the original topic of the hearing, which was worker shortages. A closer look at COVID in Maryland right now. Good news, numbers are trending down. Just over 600 new cases today compared to more than 1,000 this time 3 weeks ago. 20 more Marylanders are out of the hospital, leaving 424 people still hospitalized with the virus.
Growing calls for Congress to re-examine how America handled the early days of the COVID crisis and if some viewpoints were intentionally silenced.
Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman brings us the debate now from Capitol Hill.
On Capitol Hill, that Republican takeover of the House resulting in a new direction and litany of investigations and hearings, including on the origins of COVID and possibly the spread or alleged censorship of information.
What big tech did essentially, I think, caused tremendous harm to the American people. Suppose that we'd had an open and honest debate in 2020 and 2021 about school openings. So many of our kids would not have had the lifelong harm done to them that we did with these lockdown policies.
Often cited by conservatives as a target of suppression, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya of Stanford University says his findings, which sometimes contradicted government messaging, were dismissed and called dangerous, something he originally voiced on Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson. Now he and others calling for a truth commission, arguing many businesses and school closings and certain mask and vaccine requirements could have been avoided had their voices been heard.
We would have won that debate in 2020 and 2021 had we been allowed to present the science openly. And big tech played a malign role in suppressing that debate from happening.
The people of America entrust us to find the answers.
Big tech has increasingly been scrutinized by Congress for its process in deciding what's worthy of sharing versus blocking. But lawmakers also contend the crisis isn't over.
I remind my colleagues there are 500 people still dying every day from COVID. This is still with us.
They accuse some Republicans of putting politics ahead of science and say they're still fighting the spread of misinformation from the right.
I do want to highlight the real importance of mis and disinformation and how it has undermined our vaccine efforts.
And though coming from very different angles, both parties say they are open to improvement and being better prepared to avoid a repeat in the future. On Capitol Hill, I'm Scott Thuman.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think credible science voices were silenced during the COVID pandemic? So far, 82% of those who voted say yes. You can make your voice heard at foxbaltimore.com. Click on the Pulse tab and you can weigh in.
A new study from the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation claims that natural immunity from COVID-19 can last up to 10 months. Protection against severe disease and death is still at almost 90% at the 10-month mark. Researchers say that's about as good as 2 vaccines. They also say it's enough to where most people probably only need 1 booster per year.
Nestled in the heart of East Baltimore is the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, housing more than 150 prominent figures in Black history. Be More Lifestyle's Mark Clark gives us an inside look.
This is where our civil rights legends and ancestors and heroes from the NAACP to the Urban League, these are just where they're housed at. This is kind of where we end the tour when, coming out, and these are the last remnants of what we see to pass on the torch.
Awesome. Who do we have here? Obviously, Merle Evers.
And Medgar Evers. So these are just legendary individuals from Mississippi, very powerful in NAACP. Of course, unfortunately, this gentleman was assassinated, but what's unique is he was assassinated at 38. Just imagine how much more life he would have been able to live and change, very similar to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
Well, the museum is open for tours Thursday through Sunday. For more information, go to greatblacksinwax.org.
The toll of the border crisis impacting everyone from migrants and border town residents to those protecting the U.S. itself. How a border agent's death by suicide is spurring change in Congress.
Also ahead on the late edition, BGE requesting a rate hike just days after Mayor Brandon Scott's conduit deal was announced. How much more every BGE customer could pay, not just city residents, by the way.
And tomorrow morning, it is going to feel like winter as temperatures drop to the 20s. It'll be a cooler afternoon as well, but then we have a warm up for Sunday. I'll let you know what to expect for the weekend coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.